Welcome to the Grow Your Business podcast. Listen in as we discuss all things business, growth and marketing with business owners, thought leaders and entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, founder of Roundhouse, the creative agency, Saul Edmonds.
Hi everyone and welcome to the Grow Your Business podcast. Today I'm speaking with Warren Crawford from Spaces around the topic of growing your business by scaling in a cost-effective way. Warren, how are you going today?
Good. Thank you, Saul. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no worries at all. We've got this, which is probably a pretty timely topic at the moment too, but thought we'd have Warren on because it's extremely relevant to what he does at Spaces. So, Warren, I'll just, at this point, just pass it over to you just to give us a little bit of a outline of who you are, Spaces, its history, and a range of different services that are provided by Spaces. Over to you.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Spaces is part of the IWG group, which was originally Regis. So many of you may know Regis centres for their serviced offices and co-working spaces, but essentially the business started back in 1989 in Brussels by the CEO, Mark Dixon. And really the idea that he had was there was a huge gap in terms of the offerings between traditional office space and people working from home. He certainly saw a gap in the market there, so decided to have a go of things. And it's now grown up to 3,300 locations across the world. And that incorporated Spaces, which is the brand that I work within. And Spaces itself was actually started back in 2008 in Amsterdam. And really the idea behind Spaces was to be a bit more of an upmarket co-working and office space with European styling and a sense of community and really focusing on the entrepreneurial spirit. From there it's taken off. So in terms of Spaces, we've got 200 locations across the world, including 6 here in Australia now, with more on the books to come. So my role within the business is to manage the space, to manage the centre. And that's everything from arranging networking events to conducting works in the space, making sure that everything's running smoothly, and even account management. But, essentially I'm an extension of your business. Really my goal is to help you grow and to make sure that you're maximising the space here and getting the most benefit out of it possible.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really interesting point you were saying about the social aspect of it too, because I guess the traditional idea of whether you want to call somebody the landlord or the person who runs the space is that they really just do that. They don't necessarily, have a different level of engagement within the space, but that's certainly something that, this general idea of either co-working spaces or then, what you're speaking about with Spaces has much more of a community aspect to it. Would you say that's right?
Yeah, correct. I guess I've always seen serviced offices and co-working spaces as not so much the box or the room that you're working from, but more so it's everything about it that comes along with it. It's a sense of community. It's the assistance that you get, and you kind of get this extended network and almost a family within the centre that you work within. The conversations you have around the kitchen really ultimately can lead to some really powerful relationships. Yeah.
I guess you've got this, it's very timely right now too, that idea which ties into just the simple human connection as well, because as we all know, working in your own business or just generally often working in small business or in many businesses can be quite isolating. So having that community and having people around you, whether you even really know them that well is I think certainly for some people more than others, it's of a huge benefit. But I think generally that plus all the networking opportunities are huge. Just a quick question, how would you compare, say, something like Regis, which you're involved in then too, the way that Regis approaches things, with office spaces, two spaces, apart from the some of the obvious things you've already gone over. Are there any particular aspects of those two that are really different, from each other that you'd like to outline?
I think really Regis's offering is it's the idea is to try and keep it simple but keep it professional. So the real appeal is that you've still got the opportunity to expand your business, to have a flexibility of workplace with Regis. But the offering is very much more straightforward in a professional sense. Whereas Spaces is probably a bit more professionally playful, I'd say. It's creative. There's a real focus on the business club, which is it's a communal area that's quite a bit larger than what you would get in a Regis space, for example. The idea is it almost feels like a cafe. So
right.
You have really nice coffee there. You've got some ambient music in the background. You've got place to plug in and sit up and do work for the day. But it's open, and it's the idea is that you're sort of trying to create those connections within the space.
Yeah, sure. Have you got or have Regis and Spaces then found in over whatever period of time that there are certain industries or professions that seem to gravitate to one or the other, or is it a real mixed bag?
I certainly think there is industries that gravitate one way or another, and part of that comes down to their personality in the industry. Part of it comes down to their clientele and a few other factors as well. As an example, and a lawyer, for example, probably wouldn't see all of the benefit that comes with having a location in a Spaces centre, and is much more I just need a place to work and that'll suit me fine. Whereas you might find a business like a marketing business, they really latch into that networking opportunity and that community opportunity and really enjoy the space. But in saying that, we have, some really major corporate companies that work in both. As an example, we've got Uber in one of our centres over in California in Spaces, which, kind of fits their startup, not quite a startup, but a bit more of a funky workplace. In that tech space, but it really is varied. But there certainly is personalities, I guess, we see between those two.
Yeah, sure. And then when you've got just tying some of that back into the idea of how those different spaces, how the environments themselves, or the things that happen within the environments, how that actually ties into the potential to grow somebody's business too. If you were to look at, say, something like Spaces, because we've had our own business has had some experience in similar kind of environments, and I'd really be interested to hear your thoughts about how potential growth for a business, and of course also then saving some money too. You've got these amazing kind of areas where you can work, and they're very enjoyable as well, but how you've seen some examples of the potential for the space itself and the environment to grow somebody's business.
Look, I guess, and this really is a unique time for a lot of businesses, both large and small. even before COVID-19. I guess, the opportunity to sell on a global scale has been opened up. And that's anywhere, from multinational businesses down to anyone with a PC and an idea, right? But, I guess the question is, how do you leverage that position to create a network of support for your customer? Because essentially, if you want to truly scale your business and deliver the same level of service, regardless of whether your client's in front of you or on the other side of the world, then it's about the level of service that you provide, and you do need presence for that. And what do I mean by presence? I think about, so for example, think about the last time you bought a car. Generally, the warranty and servicing and parts holds a lot of sway in the decision-making process. And if you find out that the brand that you're looking at, for example, only has a service centre in another capital city, parts can take up to 6 weeks to arrive. And if you need support, it's via an international call centre. You might kind of think twice about that decision. Whereas the same applies to any of our businesses if we're really looking at growing them. At the end of the day, people want that sense of connection. They want to feel like they're dealing with someone who understands their market and the local area and the challenges that they're facing, and that generally means someone close by. So let's take a marketing company as an example. Let's say you have a team of 5 based locally, and you'd be wanting to break into the Melbourne market as an example. You've got a great service. You can build the business locally, but you want to test the waters in a different market to just see how you can scale up and grow your presence across Australia. One of the options available to you would be to go and get a virtual office service, and that would give you a professional address, a landline number, and a place to work if you need to go and work for the day. With this, I guess you can choose to have one of your teams starting to work from Melbourne once a week, once a fortnight. You might choose to leave the local team here and go and spend 3 months in Melbourne building the market yourself. Or you might decide you want to hire someone new to take on that role down in Melbourne. As an example, a service like that would cost you, as little as $200 a month, depending on the location. And, at the end of the day, we're one offering. There's literally dozens of different businesses out there as well that offer similar services. So it is really a cost-effective way to grow your presence. And depending on your situation, you may want to start in several cities at once. However, unless you've really got the resources to service those locations, I'd probably suggest starting with one place. And that'll allow you to really start to grow locally, start building networks, and really starting to plant yourself in with potential clients and suppliers and partners down in that market. And the really exciting thing, I guess, is not so much that service, but what you can tap into. And that goes back to what we were talking about before. It's really about the community that you can tap into. That's where it starts getting exciting, and that's where it starts getting really powerful as well. Because the community that you join in with, you generally want to find one that's got a thriving group of people that are actively involved in networking. You want to, that way you can really create some strong partnerships with new clients or partners or suppliers. And you can open up new opportunities to do business. Instead of heading down to Melbourne, for example, and starting your marketing off, sitting at home and waiting for the phone to ring, you really almost getting out there and pounding the pavement, not in a literal sense, but figuratively being able to get straight in front of people that can broaden your market immediately. whether that's someone that, is working in like marketing, for example, someone that's a photographer or an SEO specialist or a web designer. You can immediately start creating networks there as partnerships. But you'd also want to look at, with that centre that you're joining, what kind of businesses already occupy that space.
Yeah, I think the key, I think what you were actually saying before about opportunities, I think the word opportunity seems to me like a really key idea with these services too, is that, if you're looking past the fact that you're going to have a space or a virtual space, even just to tick the box of, of having a Google Maps listing, which like some people will be doing it for, no doubt. But looking at the bigger picture, the opportunity that, you could potentially gain from even that initial first step, I think is kind of underestimated by a lot of people. And this is like a little bit from our own experience too. But, if you look at, it's almost, in my mind anyway, it's almost like another really interesting catalyst to network with people, on its own merits. It's, it's great just purely for that. And just a question around, like we covered before, some, different sorts of businesses, but is there, not necessarily types of business, but is there more often than not a particular stage of business where these kind of spaces are more helpful, or is it, once again, really quite broad?
I think it depends on the brand, right? As I said, we've got Regis and Spaces here in Australia. I would position Spaces as more of a focus if you're a startup or a small business, just because of that access to community. Whereas I would say that Regis is a bit more established business. Established businesses, unless you're a salesperson, they're probably not going to get a great deal of value out of, or as much value out of a community like Spaces. It's not to say they can't work from there, but the real beauty of, a Spaces environment is being able to adapt on the fly and being open to ideas that might come across your desk on any given day. As an example, I've worked in a space similar to Spaces in the past myself, and everyday conversations around lunch or around the coffee machine can open up new ideas for software tools that might help your business, or people that you might be able to speak to improve the way you're doing things, or someone to connect with that might be a great person to help you grow your business.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I think it's certainly, the scope of it is only, like a lot of things, only limited by how much you're willing to put into it too. Obviously, that's a big part. Like you have to be engaged with anything, to take advantage of it. But when you've got a physical space or virtual space, it's still, there's that kind of keyword cropping up again about opportunity. And and this is, generally all times are good times for opportunity, but especially important now, for small business, I think. So I think these sorts of spaces and the ideas around them are actually really potentially really important for people who've never considered them too, who haven't thought that could be the case. Because I know from my own point of view, I used to be one of those people. Like we had a space, we had an office space, and we had a lease. And when I first considered having, like, not doing that, when I saw a colleague of ours in our industry who had quite a big company, and they were talking about being in this other space. It was like a co-working space. And I was really confused at first. I thought, how could they do that? How could they work? And then they had, I think they had a blog on this particular Spaces. It wasn't Spaces, it was another place. And they were talking about it, and I thought, wow, I know those people too. So there must be something in it. And then we looked into it, and once you got over, certain initial preconceptions, which weren't, I found out very quickly weren't, really relevant at all. It was very interesting, actually, to be honest. But
well, I think a lot of people assume that co-working spaces are just for sole operators or startups or that sort of thing, but really they're for everyone. And it is about what you take out of it. Even some of the spaces that I know, and us included, do a lot of seminars and networking events, which depending on who you are, can be really quite powerful. Whether that's having someone speak about different ways to manage your bookkeeping, or new ways to think about sales, that can be really quite powerful. But you do need, as you say, these spaces, they do tend to favour the extroverted, but they don't have to. So if you're not the sort of person that enjoys sort of creating networks out in the cafe area, then you might enjoy going to a seminar and learning that way as well.
Yeah, sure. So just just to wrap up what we've been talking about, have you got a couple of top tips, one or two top tips for people who have never used Spaces? Well, Spaces like Spaces, or like Regis. Top tips for people especially who've never had any experience with them. What would you suggest?
I would start by understanding what it is you want to achieve. If it's important to you to have an address and a phone number and a place to work, then look for that. If it's important to find the community, then focus on that. But I would always suggest, regardless of the brand, obviously we want you to come and join us, but regardless of the brand, it's about finding the community that speaks to you the most. So I would ask a lot of questions. If you're going to tour one of these premises, each centre is different. Don't take the brand as, it's going to be exactly the same across the country. Each centre has its own unique culture. So ask a lot of questions about what types of businesses are in there, what activities they do, how do they network, and that'll really give you a sense of what you're going to get out of that space. The other thing is, don't be afraid to spend a little bit more money to get the better culture and the better community. At the end of the day, you can always find there's always going to be a cheaper product, but it's not about the price, it's about the value that you take out of it. And if you think about it, a place or a space like this can be worth thousands and thousands of dollars in revenue just by picking the right place. So that's critical as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really key point. That's it, and sort of once again the focus for like a lot of people is of course they're thinking about it being a space to work at, to have somewhere. But those points are really important and tie in very specifically to the topic of what we're talking about is how these can actually be an important part of your business. So we're just going to ask Warren as well if he's got a quote that he would like to give us that is that one you like or may not be relevant. Warren, what would you like to say?
I've got one that's it's a little bit lighthearted, but I think it does speak to people that might be considering this option. And the quote is, "Courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyway." And that was by John Wayne.
Good old John Wayne. Yeah. So, and how can everyone, if people are interested in these sort of solutions, what's the best way for people to get into contact with you or to find out more? What's the location online they would go to?
For Spaces, you can go to spacesworks.com or you can go to regis.com, depending on your preference. And you're always welcome to drop into one of our centres. Every centre has a community manager like me that's always happy to have a chat and give you a bit more information about what it is we do.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much again today, Warren. There's really great information. And thank you also to everyone else for listening again today to our podcast. Before we go, please leave your feedback as well as any suggestions for any topics that you would like us to discuss in any future episodes. Thanks again for listening to the Grow Your Business podcast, and we'll see you again soon. Bye, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Grow Your Business. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.